I'm the early stage guy, so I've kind of made a business for myself, taking really early stage ideas and getting them to profitability, turning them into businesses. And actually over the last few years, I've been running studios where the whole model is to kind of try out lots of ideas and then turn one or two of them into companies. So kind of startup that builds startups, if you like. It's a bit Shoreditch, but we're in Shoreditch, so it's okay. It's like a home crowd, right? So, is any full stack people in the room? Okay, we have a few of them. So I guess I'm a bit of a full stacker, and I've got a background in design. I can also code, a bit of AI in there, which is suddenly really popular. But the problem with being a full stacker is that this occurs to you all the time. Just do all the things. If you're kind of good at lots of stuff, then you can have a go at everything. It just means that I'm not particularly good at any one thing, which is a bit frustrating, especially for the people who work with me. I thought I'd give you a bit of background about me, and then I'd go on to some things that I want to tell you about the thing I'm doing at the moment, which is my new venture. My first thing I started was straight after university. Somehow, and this links into the sales talk we just had, somehow I convinced this woman that I could build her website for the next 5 years of my life in the back room of a student house in South Birmingham. And this woman is Vivienne Westwood, the famous designer, who's an absolute inspiration to me because she's a bit like me, a bit of a kind of do-everything person. And she's made a fantastic kind of bootstrap business out of doing this to the establishment, really. It's quite amazing if you look back at her history. And when I was in her studio, I saw her workflow, and it was quite amazing. Her whole process was drawing out little sketches on pieces of paper, and then standing by a photocopier, and then photocopying it, and then telling her team what it meant. And so she was designing entire garments, it's just a bit like this, you know, it has to go like this. And then communicating that with her team in a really collaborative way. And I've picked that up in the way that I work, and I like to think of it as sketching with code. So there's a lot of people who are engineers, and you probably work with some of these guys. They want everything specced out. It has to be kind of designed up front, and it has to be a bit kind of clear. I work in the kind of sketchy unknown space, and that's where I'm most comfortable. So I thought I'd give you a few of the things I've made. We just heard about a little hack that I did a while ago, but I thought I'd show you two of the little hacks that I enjoy doing. And by hack, I mean going to a hack day event or sitting on a coffee table somewhere and making something very quickly, just to kind of get an idea out of my head. So I like making things in code, whereas other people might do a PowerPoint deck or something like that. I actually make it. And these guys, The Guardian, I'm sure you've heard of them, they, when they changed their domain name to theguardian.com, forgot to buy the misspelling. So I did a quick check, and they hadn't bought teguardian.com, which is the proper internet way of spelling The Guardian. And so I registered it just for a giggle. And then I thought, what am I going to do with this? So at a hack day, I actually bumped into a friend of mine who used to host The Guardian on his desk. That was his job. He had like a Sun Microsystems server, and we knocked this up together, which is basically the Guardian website. If you go to teguardian.com today, it's a bit broken just before this meeting. I think something's changed, but I'll fix it. Basically, you get the whole of the Guardian website, except on every single page I've inserted 5 randomly generated typographic or spelling mistakes. So the idea was that we just send this to the authors on The Guardian just to screw with them a bit. It's like, I think you didn't mean an Oxford comma there, actually. It's kind of really annoying little things. Because The Guardian's kind of known for having lots of spelling mistakes in it. It's a bit of a funny joke. What really amused me afterwards is when I spoke to the product manager at The Guardian, he was like, this is brilliant. Because we can now train our interns how to spot all the typos on our website. I was like, yeah, that's exactly why I did it. That's brilliant. So the surprising things come from kind of little throwaway experiments, and that just took a couple of hours at Hack Day. It wasn't a big deal. It's quite easy. But then stuff emerges. Another Hack Day was called a cryptographic quilt, which is I worked with Liz here, who's an artist. And we came up with a visual language that represents different characters in these kind of diagrammatic style. And this is a like, really dangerous family secret that we've encoded in this visual language and then encrypted with a password. And then we've put the password to the quilt in her will. So when she dies, it's a bit morbid, I know, then the family will find out the secret by being able to decode it. And you're probably sitting here thinking, like, why on earth am I listening to this guy talking about these hacks? But weird things happen from this. So, like, the FT came and photographed me for a story about a studio I was running. And so I thought it'd be a bit of a giggle, and I encoded my own credit card details into a T-shirt and wore it. Because what else would you do if the FT is coming talking to you? So it's a bit ridiculous, I know, but that's the process, just kind of messing around with ideas, trying stuff out, and seeing where they go. Because this quote, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings, really applies when you're able to knock up things out of code really quickly. So rather than sitting there and spending tons of time designing stuff, you just kind of just make it, and then it gives you an inkling of about how people react to it. So a more serious example, I was playing around comments around YouTube videos, and a friend of mine who worked in the kind of broadcast TV industry, and he was saying, it's really difficult to find particular moments in a video, it's really hard. Obviously that was a few years ago, so that's changed. And then within a few months, and I'm not joking, within a few months of making that tiny little prototype to be able to index a video with some text, we'd raised, a few £100,000, subsequently a few £1 million to build a full product that was based on that very simple premise, but writ large, entire teams of people being able to collaborate around video and build TV programs in a browser. Now, this stuff is kind of old news now, this was a few years ago, but taking that little principle of, sketching up something quickly and then seeing where it goes is kind of what I've built my life doing, and naivety is your big advantage. If you're looking at growth and if you're working in software, the entrant is you. You're the people going into an industry, and the industry will have an existing way that it's done, and you'll just look at it going, well, that's a bit mad. Surely it should be done like this. And so paying attention to that is a good thing. So in all of this, little big ideas is what I kind of look for in the work that I do. Tiny things that have a potential to be big, but don't necessarily have to be big at the beginning. And I'd like you to think about this not in the terms of like starting a startup, because you guys are growth people. This is about every single feature, every single experiment idea you've got. It doesn't have to be mega, it can just move a tiny needle. And if you make those things tiny enough, then you just get into the habit of trying them. And if anything I've learned from like successful startup people and growth people is by doing lots and lots of small experiments regularly enough, you can then make the needle move really big on the ones that work. And the crucial thing is to have an idea funnel. So you have lots of things you could potentially be doing. You could be building any sort of startup at the moment. You could be doing any sort of new feature. The thing that I've learned over the years is that you have to kind of gather as much potential that you could be developing or working on, and then filter them down pretty rapidly, because you can't spread your time between too many different opportunities. And so the process we had at my previous studio was we actually had like ideas for businesses at the top, and then we had a process whereby we would kind of reject, or test and test and test, until we were aiming to be able to come out with a successful company at the other end. Grow the winners, grow the ones that have proven themselves, but very, very brutally be able to just kill your own ideas, just delete the things that aren't working. And you'll know this from experience, you'll have seen this in any product you're building. There's like this beautiful feature where you're expecting everyone to be pressing the star button next to a thing, and you're like, I know they're going to do this, and then someone does it, you're like, brilliant, someone's doing that, and you're like, they're doing it enough, but it's not making a dent on anything, but it's consuming resources and time. And things with the zombie ones, they're the worst, because a feature or an idea that doesn't work, well, you just kill it immediately. A feature that's smash out of the park, it's like, yeah, great, throw everything we've got at it. It's these zombie ones you have to really watch out for. What do you do to the zombie? Smack it in the head, just get rid of it, because it's consuming your resources. So I applied this thinking to like how to kind of come up with a good idea for a startup. You might be in that similar spot. You might be coming up with a new business. This applies on the small level as well. So out of that, pop some stuff you might be familiar with. You might have attended an event in London on my little events platform that I built, and Unicorn Hunt. Pretty cool little kind of startup hiring platform. The thing I wanted to talk about was Makelight, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail. Have you heard this phrase? Build, measure, learn? Must be familiar. It's the kind of the virtuous loop of building any kind of product-based business. And the problem I've always had with this phrase is build what? What do you choose to build? And how do you measure it? And then what do you learn from it all? Like there's implied questions in this loop. So choosing what to build has always been a difficulty for me. I find it really hard. Like available options all over the place. So the way that I filter it down, and this is probably something that is just really useful for the next time you're doing a meeting where you're looking at which growth experiments, which growth experiments do you want to run? And what I do with my team is I always sit down and look at the available channels or available experiments that I might want to run, and then I break those down into post-it notes and just do a really quick planning session, probably teaching you to suck eggs here, but basically you get your post-it note for the thing you might want to try that might be a good growth experiment, and then you put it on these axes. And basically anything below this line that's less valuable, you just ignore for the time being, and you pay attention to that top area. And this is the process. This is the kind of growth process that I go through. Anything that's up in the top left here, like this valuable idea, or it's a valuable idea, but it's hard to do. That's probably where your big, massive startup sits, the difficult stuff. Up here is your kind of low exit startup, or your immediately achievable growth hack. Let's just follow those people on Twitter or something. Like really dumb little basic things up here. And the problem is this is the valuable stuff that's probably going to really move the needle in whatever you're doing. And so actually the important thing on this diagram is to work out how to break down hard stuff into small stuff. And if you loop that process, then you end up with tasks in your to-do list that are constantly moving hard stuff into easy stuff that's in the valuable side of that diagram. And if you have that as your kind of weekly cycle, then you can end up with a list of achievable stuff very quickly that can help you grow what you're doing. Problem with this though is, I'm sorry my terrible animation skills here. This is a little weight falling into a valley. And it falls down, and it rolls, and it rolls back. Sorry, it didn't go, right? So I'm from the world of artificial intelligence, and if you're kind of teaching a computer to learn, this is kind of one of the principles you kind of learn as a basic. It's got a local minimum, and with any kind of startup or new feature or any kind of invention, your initial attempt is like, we think this is probably what we're going to go for, so we're going to put our efforts there. And that's great, and you'll probably find that you'll get something relatively successful from your efforts, and it reaches a kind of, it's a happy medium of where you've got a result. The problem is that if you were dropping that ball slightly in a different place, and you're designing your tests slightly differently, there's a huge opportunity over here, if you're trying to get to the bottom of these valleys in the most efficient way, where you should be putting your effort. And so the reason I kind of talk about that diagram of moving things from hard to easy is that often the easy thing isn't the thing you need to aim for, it's a much harder opportunity. So a way to look at that is keyboard that you're probably all familiar with. Has anyone ever spotted this on your laptop? You can type the word typewriter using the characters on the top of your keyboard. And the story goes that the reason the keyboard is designed in this way is so that the people who are doing sales of keyboards could write the word typewriter as a demo when they were selling the keyboards to people. Now that might not be true, but it's quite funny, I think, that that's the way it is. Now, wouldn't it be terrible if we'd all spent our years like stretching our fingers to reach these keys because some guy somewhere decided that was the spec for the keyboard? And that's your local minimum. It's like, oh, I'll just do that, it'll be fine. But actually, Optimum is further away. The Optimum is this, it's called Colmac, and it's a keyboard that's designed to remove the stretching of your fingers. They've mapped out the entirety of English to work out the amount of movement you have to make to type English on a keyboard, and then spaced all the keys accordingly. And that's the appropriate design. But that's really hard to do now, and it's a hard thing to work out. And so when I'm thinking about a problem, it's like, great, we can ship something, it'll be crap. That's the thing we should really be shipping. You're not going to be able to ship that straight away though, because you don't know if it's going to be the thing that people want. So data is the way that you solve that problem. And when you're early, there isn't much of it. Do you know who knows this woman?
Curie.
Curie, yes. Curie, amazing scientist, and I would love to be able to attribute this saying to her, but I can't. And the reason I have her here is because in all of what I do, and all of what you do as someone working in growth, you have to be thinking scientifically. I think she should have said this, she didn't. You need to A/B the change you want to see in the world. You need to have evidence for every decision you're taking, and for me, when I'm building products and services, the approach of taking things from a scientific point of view can really help you get to something where you have a known outcome, where you've removed other outcomes that are definitely less performant. And the humble A/B test, when you're early on in something, can be such a powerful thing, but I think a lot of people don't quite understand about A/B tests. They kind of often over-design them or just apply it very simply on a page. And so you need to know how to ask the right question in order to get a valid test. I'll just show you one more example here, which is Lendy, a product that I worked on over the last year, and we took a really scientific approach to this. The brief for this product, so I was working with a team, was to create a car lending platform. So neighbours would borrow each other's cars. That was the idea, very simple. The problem is there's no behaviour there, no one does that. So we set about designing some experiments that would help us work out what the behaviour was and what really we needed to be testing to see if we could validate or disprove this potential. Because there's a huge market there in cars sitting on the streets not really doing anything. Like they sit there 95% of the time just unused. Surely, if we borrowed them, that'd be a huge thing. Brilliant. So what we realised in all of our tests was actually we needed to test the behaviour. So what we did is we designed out the entire kind of app, which was pretending to build out a way for someone to hire their car from someone else. And in so doing, we came upon our question kind of backwards, which was maybe that there's a barrier where people just need to get the insurance sorted out. So that's what we built. And we did A/B testing around, is this the right thing that we should be building? So we set it up as an experiment where the outcome was, would people get through to the other end of the process having put in their credit card to buy the thing that we needed them to do? And by running that experiment, we found out the answer was yes. And then you put all your resources behind it and turn it into a real startup. And so that's what I mean about testing your assumptions before you get on to building out something much bigger. So by doing a little hack of the idea, roughly, doing it really kind of badly, you can de-risk the later proposition where more resources are required. And then you're doing much more kind of developed A/B tests and testing. So in all of that, this diagram, and if you go to 500 startups, there's a really great worksheet that I think should be the kind of standard for anyone who's doing growth work. Just to define out what your experiments are, who's doing what the prediction is, the results that you're expecting, and then what you've learned from it. And that, in combination with that X, Y, 2x2, of which tasks are we doing, which tests are we up for, which channels are we going for, by putting this down in writing, defining how much effort you're putting into your tests and experiments, you're kind of building a really great learning loop for yourself on every single A/B test, every single new feature you're doing. And I really encourage you to look at the 500 Startups page, because they've got like 3 or 4 of these worksheets that are absolutely brilliant. I'm not affiliated, but it's great. So most experiments should fail. I'm sure you all know that. How much time have I got? How am I doing?
That's why I'm standing up.
You want me? Am I coming to an end? How long have I got? 2 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine.
1 minute?
That's fine.
1 minute. Okay. So the end result of all this, and the thing I want to leave you with, is the missing component being passion, because you've got tech. You've got the tech you can apply, you've got these opportunities you can go for, but none of this really matters unless you've really got a passion for the thing you're trying to solve. And so the startup that I'm currently working on at the moment is a combination of these 3 things, in that we have the availability to kind of deploy all this technology all the time. We've looked at like a big market for some kind of solution we've got, but the missing component is often the passion and the interest. It sounds like I can't get into that because I'm overrunning, so I think I'm going to have to wrap up there. But thanks very much.
Thank you.